respect to the United States and the relationship there. I respect President Trump's concern for American workers and American families. We respect his concern about fentanyl. It's an issue for us here in Canada as well, and that's why the Canadian government moved very quickly with a comprehensive response that has had a huge impact in terms of controlling that issue and getting on top of that issue much better. We are ready to sit down with the Americans, with the U.S. government. I'm ready to sit down with President Trump at the appropriate time under a position where there's respect for Canadian sovereignty, and we're working for a common approach, a much more comprehensive approach for trade. We're all going to be better off. Workers here in Canada, which is our concern, workers in America, which is his concern. We are all going to be better off when the greatest economic and security partnership in the world is renewed, relaunched. That's possible. You have a new government, but the same commitment, and that commitment is built rock solid on the commitment you have all made here at Dofasco.
All of our American distributors have canceled their orders with us.
Canadian businesses are scrambling and the government is retaliating as the U.S. brings in 25% tariffs on all foreign steel and aluminum. The finance minister has announced 25% tariffs on nearly $30 billion in U.S. goods. The European Union also announced retaliation set for next month that includes U.S. products from Harley-Davidson motorcycles to meat, eggs, and vegetables. The latest 25% U.S. tariffs are a major concern for the Canadian economy and the communities heavily reliant on the steel and aluminum sectors. That includes Hamilton, Ontario, Canada's steel town. The CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick is in that city with the details.
The city of Hamilton has a long history with the steel industry going back decades. There are many plants here that over the years have employed tens of thousands of people. In its heyday, 50,000 people or so were connected to the steel industry. It's not quite like that anymore, but there are still thousands of jobs that depend on the steel industry. And so these tariffs are going to hit hard here in Hamilton for various reasons. We've been hearing from the industry here that even just the threat of the tariffs that has been around for weeks now has impacted business already. The price of steel has spiked since Donald Trump was inaugurated, we heard, and the tariffs have meant some of the U.S. customers that the Canadian companies rely on have canceled their contracts. They're not ordering more. They've put a pause on their investments or their purchases, and so that is having an impact already. And now, with these tariffs in place, making Canadian steel more expensive for those U.S. companies to buy, the concern obviously is that those U.S. companies will be looking elsewhere, stop buying from these Canadian companies, and eventually that could mean layoffs for the workers here in Hamilton and across the country. And now with Canada responding with retaliatory tariffs, that has an impact on the companies on this side of the border as well, obviously making it more expensive for them to buy U.S. products. And while Canada exports a lot of steel, it also imports steel products as well. We've been hearing about how integrated the industry is. Some of the steel and the steel products going back and forth across the border multiple times, much like the auto industry. And so all of these tariffs on both sides of the border now will hit these companies hard. We spoke earlier today to Keenan Loomis. He works for the Canadian Institute of Steel Construction, representing steel fabricators. Here's some of what we were hearing from him.
We've done a really good job of finding our niche in the North American supply chain, and steel made here in Hamilton is excellent quality. And so there is a demand for it. The U.S. does not have the domestic capacity to meet all of its demand. So that's why we sell. But we also buy a lot from the United States. It's a very balanced trade between our two countries. And so, again, more puzzling as to why this is happening.
Now, his association says it is on board with retaliatory tariffs, even though it will make business more expensive for Canadian companies on this side of the border. But his position is that Americans need to feel the pain too, that Canada shouldn't just roll over. It does need to stand up and fight back against these tariffs. He said Canada is the #1 customer for these American steel companies. He described this as pretty crappy customer service that's going on right now. He described this as a difficult day. That's the same sentiment we were hearing from Hamilton's Mayor, Andrea Horwath. We spoke to her earlier at City Hall. She, like Loomis, was calling on the Canadian government to take a couple different steps, one of them being buying Canadian, so only using Canadian steel in any public infrastructure projects. She's also saying that she's hearing from the industries that any revenue raised from the tariffs on this side of the border should go directly back into the steel industry to help it weather the storm ahead. She says she's already heard about some layoffs happening, and she's concerned about the broader impact of people losing their jobs on Hamilton's economy. If people lose their jobs here, they'll have less money to spend in the bars and the restaurants and stores and supporting the local economy. So how is she feeling today? Here's her answer.
I'm feeling extremely worried. I cannot overstate how devastating this can be for us. The longer these tariffs stay in place, the worse it's going to be for the city of Hamilton, for our community, for our companies, and for our workers, and ultimately for the families who call this city home.
Andrea Horwath saying she has been in touch with Premier Doug Ford in recent days to discuss this. She's also reached out to Prime Minister-designate Mark Carney, who was in Hamilton today meeting with some steel workers. She says she wants to keep in touch with these levels of government. She described Hamilton as being the canary in the coal mine, on the front line of these tariffs, feeling the impact hard here. And so she wants to keep them aware of the needs of the workers here in the days and weeks ahead. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Hamilton.